chaos. Chaos, guys. Seriously, with these power rankings this week, I don't even know how to start. All I know is basically it's two teams and then everybody else right now.
Like pretty much.
When we submitted our power rankings, like typically we do the individual rankings, and this video is a composite of all of our rankings. Mm-hmm. It was pretty much how I expected. Things are just kind of all over the place in terms of teams because other than Houston and St. Louis, all of these teams have really shown kind of peaks and valleys. The consistency is in this league is anything but consistent. We'll say that. And with that, we're going to start with our number 8 team, Pastel, in the DC Defenders. So you were gone for the first few weeks, so I'm not sure if you've gotten a chance to watch their first 2 home games, but they're definitely a home team right now. When they go on the road, it's not been pretty. It's a completely different team. And DC, I feel like you just have to put them based on these last 2 outings as the number 8 team.
So I was only able to see this last week's games, and my first thought was DC stinks. They are not very good. And so
welcome back, Pastel.
Welcome back.
All the things you guys were saying as you guys went to the game a couple weeks ago, as how good DC was, how good Cardell Jones looked, and I loved it. I love saying, "Hey, Kenny, how's Cardell doing?" And then I actually watched the game, and I'm like, "Holy crap, this team sucks!" And it came down to honestly just poor execution. As I was watching, I'm like, "What is Cardell doing?" And he's just missing receivers by like 10 yards. The defense is atrocious. No gap discipline on the defensive line, and the linebackers aren't fast enough to hit the gap and actually just pursue the runners. I mean, they're just getting outpaced by the running backs, and they're just doing one cuts and going upfield. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why Matt Elam had 12 tackles this last game. No safety should ever have 12 tackles in a game. They got cut.
Yeah, they just got gashed up front. I mean, they just got their butts whipped in the box. I mean, Tampa Bay just did whatever they wanted. I think they had over 250 yards of rushing. I mean, it was crazy.
The first 2 running backs to have over 100 yards apiece in XFL history. Pastel, I'm telling you, man, after our week 2 rankings, they were our number 1 team, and we called them on this show the most complete team in the league. And then they are just free fell off of a cliff.
I can't name a strength right now on that team.
Let's put a caveat on that. By the way, they're my number 2 ranked team. They're number 1 because you two put.
I'm talking as a show in general. We know your feelings, Kenny. Everybody knows your feelings about DC. Okay.
He didn't even have a number 1.
He refused to put him at number 1. He'd rather have no team at number 1. But yeah, so DC right now. I mean, after the last 2 weeks, you have to put them in that 8 slot. It'll be interesting to see once they get back home if they can regroup. But they're going up against the BattleHawks, who seem to just keep getting better and better every week. So we'll see. We'll see how DC regroups coming back to Audi Field. But let's go to number 7 in the Seattle Dragons. And this is an interesting one because fans, especially up in the Seattle area, have been begging for BJ Daniels. And he finally gets his opportunity, and he plays pretty well. Gless, I don't know. Do you think that's more of just BJ Daniels himself, or BJ Daniels coming in and he's such a different style quarterback than a Brandon Silvers that the BattleHawks their defense was prepped for a Brandon Silvers, and then they get the mobile quarterback in BJ Daniels?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the latter there. I just think the BattleHawks weren't ready for the type of run game that they were going to get from Seattle once BJ Daniels was in the game. And look, the reason that they're number 7 is just overall the game was over. I mean, I know Seattle got close there and had a chance to win it at the end, but St. Louis kind of had that game in handle. They
basically controlled it from start to finish.
They controlled it from start to finish. The passing game is just a complete embarrassment for Seattle. Even when BJ Daniels got in there and threw the ball, I knew he threw a touchdown, but 5 for 10. His biggest impact was certainly with his legs, and they were able to get some things going in the run game. I was a little bit disappointed that the Seattle defense didn't have a better showing in the first half. I thought that they let St. Louis get on a bunch of big drives, score early, and really put a bunch of pressure on the offense. And that's just not how they're going to win. They're simply not good enough on offense. I'm going to be extremely interested to see how they fare this week because they play Houston. And can they get enough going on offense to at least keep this game within striking distance, a lot like they did against St. Louis in the second half? They were able to get within striking distance at the end. But, guys, I mean, they gave up close to over 400 yards of total offense to St. Louis. So the defense was a little bit of the letdown. And like I said earlier, the offense just couldn't get anything going. They get Daniels in there, but with a week to prep, I think that the Roughnecks are going to be ready for the running game, the quarterback run game with BJ Silvers.
You have to give him credit though. I mean, BJ Daniels clearly provided a spark to that offense.
He did.
That
There's no doubt about it.
The offense was anemic. It was predictable, and there were a lot of bad decisions coming from the quarterback position. I know Daniels had that one interception, but still, that factor that he brought to the game, the energy that he brought to that offense is something that they can at least build on. And if they can get the running game going behind him with Kenneth Farrow, Jaquan Gardner, their stable of running backs there, then maybe they got something. Who knows? But, I mean, Steven Johnson, the dude is just a tackling machine. He has 40 combined tackles. He's averaging 10 tackles a game. So that dude's a stud. So there are some positives to take if you're a Dragons fan. And we'll see how Daniels does in their next game. But yeah, they have the spark, so let's see if they can keep it going. So let's go to number 6, and we're going to go to the LA Wildcats. And this is one of those teams where I feel like through our personal power rankings, they were kind of a little bit all over the place in that middle tier. I get why you put New York ahead of them because they lost to New York, but man, Kenny, they really had a lot of chances in that game. A couple missed field goals, a couple, things don't bounce their way, but I thought for the most part that they were in the game and they had opportunities to take control of the game. They just didn't seize the opportunities.
Yeah, it was really weird. It was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde compared to last week to this week. And it's kind of weird to say because they didn't play bad against the Guardians. They just didn't play great. They kind of just played football. And I think we kind of glossed over, and maybe we didn't give the Guardians enough credit. We talked about last week, like, Spruce is out, Carter's out. They've had couple injuries on offense, and we're like, but they'll be okay because they're just playing the Guardians. But it's very clear those injuries definitely impacted their offensive performance. They went from scoring 39 points to 14. So that's the thing to keep our eye on moving forward. Spruce, if he's out, he's one of the best, most dynamic receivers in the league. That's a big loss to that offense. And Carter finally got things going on the ground and through the air, catching the ball in the backfield. And if he's still out, that could hurt us. That still could be an issue as well. So I'm very curious moving forward to see how they deal with the injuries. And now you mentioned Nick Novak. He's out too. They just put him on IR. So now they've got to find a new kicker. And it's very clear something was wrong because he missed I think it was like a 35-yard kick, and he missed it badly.
I would say if he hits both field goals, they win the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least we would have got our first overtime.
That's right.
Kenny, I think it's a chemistry thing, though, man. As you heard Josh Johnson on the sideline talking to Winston Moss, he's like, hey, put people on the field that know the plays.
Yeah.
Like, he was getting frustrated with the coach saying, like, these guys on the field right now aren't doing the routes. They're not doing they're not executing the way the schemes are supposed to be set up, which tells me these guys that are injured knew that scheme, knew how to fit into it. And right now, the LA Wildcats are kind of just trying to still gel right now. So I think that's kind of why you see a little bit of flux.
I mean, I think we all agree here that the Wildcats are a team that can be much higher than where they're at right now. There's a lot of potential on this team. Once they get some guys healthy, mainly Spruce and Carter back in that offense. I mean, Spruce and McBride, they're two of the top 5 receivers in terms of receiving yards in the entire league. So once we get them on the field healthy, that's going to help out a lot. And I believe that Josh Johnson, since he's been back, he's been a top 3 quarterback in the league. He didn't even have a bad game here. They just didn't capitalize on their opportunities, and they just haven't established the running game. They just, I mean, Harris averaged 5 yards a carry, but he only got 5 attempts. They just got away from it. Josh Johnson was throwing the ball 40 times, and I don't think that's what Norm Chow wants to do. I think he wants more of a balanced attack and get the rushing game going a little bit. But like you said, Carter's been hurt. Hood's been banged up, so they're kind of just going through this Rolodex of running backs. So they need to get the running game going to complement Josh Johnson because he's been throwing a nice ball, especially his deep balls. I've been very impressed with Josh Johnson so far this year. So the Wildcats come in at number 6, so we'll go up to number 5, and the team that beat them and a team that has jumped way up from number 8 last week. We thought they were dead in the water, but Luis Perez, Pastel, your boy. You're
boy,
finally
Pastel.
back. The president of the Luis Perez fan club is finally back.
I love it.
To back his boy. Luis Perez leads the troops against the Wildcats and gets that victory. And it's kind of like what you saw in Seattle, provides a little bit of a spark to an offense that was completely dead just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I know when you look at his stats, you see 18 of 26 for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. You go the week prior when they played St. Louis, 4 or 5, 80 yards, and another touchdown. So automatically you're thinking, all right, this is the guy that needs to be a quarterback. This is the guy they've won, a game with and looked good doing it against an LA team that's just, dismantled DC the week before. So, all the signs are pointing in the right direction. So I will give Luis Perez that. But if you just watch the game tape, I'm telling you, man, like a lot of these stats are kind of inflated right now. Throwing off his back foot, receivers making plays that were, pretty good plays. Also receivers like Mikael McKay dropping easy catches as well. But I'm telling you right now, I think overall they're a well-balanced team. They leave a lot of plays on the field, though. If you look at their defensive secondary, they're always around the football, but they just don't make plays. It's like, man, like if they can get their hands on the football and create some more turnovers, this team could be that much better, honestly.
I think more in recent weeks, Pastel.
Is it?
Yeah, well, week 2 they got absolutely destroyed by DC, but week 1 they were flying all over the place. And it's kind of like you said. They've been around the ball. Summers had that INT last week, so they are making some plays, but I get what you're saying. It's kind of like they're in position, but they're just not finishing the play. But I think a big key, Gless, is that they finally got the running game going. Victor, that dude is a freaking bowling ball.
He's a beast.
That's right. You took my thunder. I love the way Darius Victor runs the ball. I saw him run week 1. I said, man, this guy is going to be a force. I think he's 5'6", 225. Like, he's just a big bowling ball. Extremely physical runner, but they finally got the run game going. And then the second thing I'll point out is because the offense got going, you saw the defense get a lot of confidence, and they didn't look gassed. One stat that really stood out, they excelled on third down, holding the Wildcats to 2 of 12 on third down. So they were able to get off the field and get the offense the ball back. So that's why they jumped up. I thought the running game and then the third down defense was extremely impressive.
Yeah, and I thought, something that we had talked about going into last week was that we were all concerned about the offensive line being able to protect Luis Perez. And there were times where he was having to kind of dodge and maneuver around the pocket, but he did a pretty good job of it, buying himself some time because he is not the most mobile quarterback, but he bought himself some time. He made some good throws. He kept his eyes downfield. So I think there's something to build on. Now, the thing is, Gilbride is not committed to him this week, believe it or not. McGloin is back practicing, so
it's crazy.
Gilbride has said he's going to, kind of see how the quarterbacks practice this week. But I just feel like after that performance and how McGloin has played these last few weeks up to this point, it would be crazy for him not to start Luis Perez and at least see if he can continue that momentum. So we'll see what Gilbride decides, but that is still out there, just to throw that out there. That a quarterback decision, at least at the time of recording this show, has not been made yet. So let's go to number 4. And finally, they're in the win column, and boy, was it an impressive win. The Tampa Bay Vipers, guys. We said it all freaking year long so far, since the preseason. This team has some real talent. And, man, those running backs showed it. They were unstoppable versus the DC Defenders defensive line. Pastel, you kind of mentioned it when we were talking about the DC Defenders, but man, the offensive line for the Vipers was just getting after it off the ball, pushing the defensive line back, getting the leverage and creating these holes for these big bruising running backs. And they're getting to the linebackers in the secondary, and those guys just can't tackle them. You have to gang tackle these guys. They're freaking monsters.
Yeah, and we've heard from multiple people that the team with the best offensive line in the league has, at least on paper, has always been Tampa. That's all we've heard about is how great their front five are, how great their offensive line is, and they've been able to run the ball really well throughout the whole year. Opening day, they had a really good day running the ball. They just couldn't execute in the red zone. So we've seen the talent. We know it's there. We know they have enough talent on both sides of the ball to be competitive. And we even said as they were winless, they weren't even our worst team in the power rankings as they were winless. We kept saying they're not an easy out. And sure enough, DC came into town last week and the Vipers just absolutely throttled them. Cornelius looked good. And just as I predicted, losing Quinn Flowers wasn't going to be that big a deal. It was overhyped. So Cornelius looked great. I was excited to see that. It seems like, they at least have someone competent at quarterback, and Murray looks like for the time being is gonna play the backup role. So I'm excited to see Tampa get on the board and see what they can do the rest of the year.
You can't take anything away from Cornelius this past game. I mean, he was running in the pocket. Pastel's nodding his head. I don't even know if I want to go to him to see what he has to say. But,
Fool's gold, man.
That's what I mean. Moving forward, we'll see if he can continue that. But I mean, he had a 92 quarterback rating. He made the throws that he had to make. He got himself some yardage in the running game. I didn't even know he could run the ball like that. I mean, I was impressed by that touchdown run. Sure. And the thing that impressed me the most, guys, was that it was a quick screen out to Dan Williams. And Williams had nowhere to go, and he runs it back around to the other side of the field. And Cornelius throws a block on a defensive lineman.
Yep. Yeah, he did.
Like, that's what you want to see out of your quarterback. That's a leader right there. And I was kind of like, all right, damn, Cornelius. That corn dog? I think people are calling him corn dog on Twitter, right?
Oh, God. I think what you're saying. Go ahead, Kenny.
The one thing I noticed about Cornelius and his limited work leading up to this game, where he actually got a full game, was when Trestman left him in the game and he got into a rhythm. He played really, really well in the second and third game of the season, but they kept switching him and Flowers, which isn't fair to either guy.
It's a great point, Kenny.
To be honest. And then he finally gets a game where he gets full rhythm and gets into a groove, and he looked really good.
Guys, and you can't also leave out the defense. The way the Vipers have played the last 2 weeks on defense, they gave themselves a chance to win against Houston 2 weeks ago, and then, of course, completely dominated the DC defender. So I think the reason that they're number 4 on this list is because they're certainly a team on the rise and on a significant rise the way they've played the last 2 weeks.
It helps when you have 2 running backs in the top 3 in rushing in the league.
Dude, those running backs look good. Those running backs are freaking beasts. I think we've been talking about it the last 3 weeks. Those dudes, those are bad dudes, man. I wouldn't want to tackle them.
They've been running the ball pretty well most of the year too, and we just needed solid quarterback play. And I think Kenny's point is a very important point. So I'm going to reiterate it real quick: is that you finally get consistency from the position in terms of keeping the same guy in the damn game and letting him get into a rhythm with the offense. I think that makes a huge difference, especially with such a young quarterback in Cornelius. So Kenny was right. Cornelius balls out. The Tampa Bay Vipers look good. And,
not sold. Not sold.
Pastel's not sold. But guys,
watch the game, man.
We watched the game, Pastel.
I'm just saying, a lot of those plays, I mean, you can throw a 3-yard play, and that like you said, Williams runs it for 40 yards. What did the quarterback do on that play? Stats are
He's getting the ball to his playmakers.
Okay,
that's what he needs to do. And Truesdale didn't even play.
Throwing balls into tight windows. When have you seen that? Now, he's getting the ball to people, but, I mean, the guys are wide open or they're making the plays for themselves. I'm just saying he's not bad. He's got guts. He's putting blocks where he needs to put blocks. But if you're looking for somebody to take you to the playoffs and to the championship, personally, I don't think that's your guy right now. Now, because of the running game and that defense, I do believe they have a solid team. And number 4.
To be fair, I don't think any of us have said that Cornelius is the guy to lead him to a championship. We're just saying, he's played well.
We've been begging all year for the Vipers quarterback position to sort itself out. So this is finally an opportunity for us to give some positive feedback on the Tampa Bay Vipers quarterback. And Pastel comes in here and just craps all over it back from the Army. So thanks for that, Pastel. But
anytime, guys.
I've been impressed. The last 2 weeks, the Vipers have looked good. The defense is kind of shored up. They didn't give up a lot of the big plays they had been to the defenders. Now, a lot of those were missed opportunities by Cardale Jones hitting his receivers. He had some shots downfield, but the Vipers look solid. So they come in at number 4. So we're going to go number 3. And this one's a little bit – this is what I'm talking about. Like, it was hard for me to put the Vipers all the way up at 3 ahead of the Dallas Renegades. But, I mean, when you lose Landry Jones, I know how poorly he played in the first half of that game. But when you look behind him, I mean, I think we know our feelings on this show about Philip Nelson as your long-term solution. Not too psyched about it.
Sure.
So, but after hearing that Landry Jones is only going to be out for a couple weeks, when it happened, and his reaction on the sideline, it looked devastating. I felt so bad for the guy because he worked, he wanted to get back into football. He was in construction before this. He was just getting back from that one knee injury that kept him out all of training camp. So you knew the rust was going to be there. So he finally gets back in, and then this happens again. So it's good to hear that it's only a couple weeks, but in a 10-game season, time is running out. I mean, we're already at week 5. So you look at their schedule moving forward. They have the Guardians at home this weekend, and then they go to D.C. and face the Defenders, and who knows what kind of D.C. Defenders team they're going to run into. So it'll be interesting to see how Philip Nelson at the helm takes this offense for these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think from the roster from top to bottom, though, and just how their team has performed, I think 3 is kind of the right spot for them. Obviously, with the healthy Landry Jones, I think 3 is is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see kind of how the offense seems to morph a little bit. If Nelson in there in the next couple weeks, maybe we see something a little bit different than we did in week 1. But I mean, if you look back to this past week's game against Houston, they didn't run the ball particularly well. And the big reason behind that is because they got behind, because they turned the ball over so much. And so, they
actually
had to
started Gless running it very well. They got Cameron Artis-Payne going early, but then those turnovers just killed all their momentum.
Turnovers,
and then
but that's what I mean. They got behind and they really had to abandon it. Now the stat numbers don't look bad. I think Lance Dunbar, 9 attempts, 48. Cameron Artis-Payne, 12 attempts for 31 yards. So, really not his best game.
Yeah.
If they don't turn the ball over, I think it was a total of four turnovers.
Yeah, that one fumble for a touchdown and the 3
fumble
picks.
for a touchdown and 3 picks. Without 4, I mean, they have a really, really good shot at winning that game. But what impressed me by Dallas, I thought it was 5. I was trying to think of that 5th one. But what really impressed me is I really liked what I saw from the Dallas Renegades defense. And I kind of said that the past couple weeks of, hey, man, kind of the word is out. Like, I don't know how good their defense is. I think they're an okay defense. I didn't think they were overly opportunistic. But you know what? They came up in big spots. They held Houston to field goals instead of giving up touchdowns, which is what Houston has done all year, which is why they've put up a lot of points. They really got strong when the ball got into the red zone. They limited Houston's big plays. I was very pleasantly surprised at how well Dallas played on defense. So if they can keep that momentum going and they can kind of skate by with Nelson until Landry Jones gets back, again, this team's going to be extremely tough to beat, just from what I saw from the defense. I was really impressed with what I saw on Sunday.
Kenny, I forgot about that Philip Nelson screen pass that I thought was an interception, but apparently they recorded it as a fumble, which I don't know how, because he caught it out of the air.
Yeah, it was tipped in the air from the receiver dropping it, and then the guy picked it. And it went forward. Like the receiver was on like the 3, and the guy picked it off on like the 1.
It was batted forward. Yeah. So I don't know why it wasn't counted as an interception, but it's a turnover regardless. Yeah. So Kenny, I know that you're not the biggest Philip Nelson guy, but they have gotten the ball going on the ground a little bit more. Maybe they open it up with Philip Nelson moving forward. It's just
Well, Pastel mentioned it earlier. What is the best medicine for a quarterback? A good running game. So if they can run the ball, if they can get the ball going on the ground like they have been in the first couple of weeks with Artis-Payne and Dunbar, that can help take the pressure off of Nelson and open up some throwing lanes for him to him to be successful. Like, I'm not the biggest Nelson fan by any stretch of the imagination, but they've got a really solid defense. Gless just hit on it. Their defense is really good. And I think, and they can run the ball really well. Those two things are a recipe to always keep you in the game. So as long as they can do both of those things, they have a shot to keep winning with Nelson. Nelson just needs to make the plays when they're there. That's the big key.
Can I get a Jazz Ferguson sighting? Has anybody seen him this year?
I've seen him drop about 15 balls.
I mean, he had 4 catches for 11 yards. I don't know. Those receivers are really going to have to step up for him. Obviously, Donald Parham is going to be his best friend because that guy's going to be playing in the NFL next year. I think you're going to see continued emphasis on getting number 49 the ball.
Yeah, their receiving core has just been so unreliable. And I know you had to throw Jazz Ferguson in there because of my preseason love for him. So thank you, Glessner, for that. But, I mean, really, Jeff Badette, their first-round pick.
Underwhelming.
Anything, very underwhelming. Obviously, Ferguson, they traded for Martino from Tampa Bay. Have gotten nothing out of him. I would say other than Parham, it's been Nagel.
Yeah, Nagel's been reliable.
Somewhat consistent. Yeah, he had a nice catch. I think it was in the corner of the end zone last week. But, you know, even at times he's kind of disappeared. But, if he's your number one guy on the outside, that's not a good situation, especially when you bring in Philip Nelson. But because Parham can't do everything. I mean, he has to this point. But I don't know if you can, make a deep playoff run for a championship with Nagel as your number one receiver and hoping that Parham has a 100-yard game every week. I don't think it's a very realistic expectation. So we'll see how Philip Nelson performs in this week's game. They're home again, so we'll see where Dallas goes from here. And Once Landry's back, what kind of Landry Jones are they going to get? Because they had a rusty one before he got hurt. So if they can just get him right, then they're a team that can contend for a championship. That second spot in the West is very, very interesting. But let's go to number 2. And it's basically like I said at the beginning of this video. It's been a tier of 1 and 2, these two teams, and then everybody else. The St. Louis Battlehawks have been getting better and better every single week. And when you look at these two teams, St. Louis and Houston, I mean, there's one common denominator: quarterback play. Jordan Ta'amu and PJ Walker have been the best 2 quarterbacks in the league. And guys, I know how much we liked Ta'amu's upside going into the season, but I don't know if we expected him to be this good this quickly.
Yeah, he's been absolutely incredible. He's a star of the week this week for the XFL for week 4. And just what he's been able to do as a rookie professional quarterback, and I don't care what level you say that at, you're a rookie at the professional level, and he's come in and just run the offense flawlessly. Chuck Long took what could have been a disaster with Meacham leaving. Doug Meacham leaving the team midway through training camp. He's absolutely steadied the ship. Jonathan Hayes, I'm very impressed with how he coaches the team from the sideline when he's mic'd up and he brings the team over. Like when there was a play last week, I can't remember exactly what had happened, but the guy, it was the 2-point conversion or the 2-point conversion where they ran the reverse, and instead of running it in for the 2-point conversion, Pearson L tried to throw it, and he could have walked into the end zone. And so he brought him in, and he goes, hey, he goes, I get it. You're excited. He goes, and he just calmed him down. He said, he's like, slow down. He's like, and take what the defense gives you and run that in next time. He didn't crush him. He sat there and talked to him like a man, and he talked to him like a leader does. And I think that's honestly, outside of Ta'amu, I think Jonathan Hayes, you see the respect he gets in the locker room after the game. They love that guy. They shower him with the seltzers. They gave him the game ball after week 1. Like, they absolutely love playing for that coach. And I think that's a very underappreciated, under-talked thing about this team.
Yeah, I agree, Kenny. I think Jonathan Hayes has been an outstanding head coach, and he's been a lot of fun to watch. Just hearing him mic'd up in the way in the locker room at halftime, after the game, it's been a lot of fun to watch. But guys, the efficiency and how good they are on offense has been extremely impressive. It seems like Jordan Ta'amu is getting better and better and better and better. And they do something on offense that no other team does, which is really utilize a ton of the RPO game. They have a lot of formations. They have a lot of motions. Honestly, they remind me of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's really what they do. I mean, they just constantly move the ball down the field. I'd like to see them score some more points. It seems like they're kind of around that low 20 range. I think that they have the potential to score, 30, 35 points a game, be just as explosive as Houston. But I mean, they're just so efficient. They don't turn the ball over. They run the ball extremely well. Ta'amu's great throwing the ball. I mean, some of the windows that he threw in last week were unbelievable. I mean, big time NFL throws. And I don't think that Seattle was prepared to face an offense that was as good and as efficient as St. Louis was.
And they have the best slot receiver in the league so far in Pearson L. I mean, they have some weapons in their running game. I think Ta'amu was their leading rusher last weekend. So the running game wasn't like it had been up to that point. Ta'amu put the team on his shoulders. I mean, every week he's between 75 and 80% completion percentage, the highest in the entire league. So I think for him to do that at this young of age, on this stage at the professional level this early is extremely impressive.
I want to see Keith Ford get some more carries. I feel like every time he touches the ball,
he had some man runs.
Yeah,
he did. He did.
He truck stick a few people. They have some good running backs on that team, but it's a Gless. I think the reason they're not scoring so many points is it's like they're setting up for later in the game. Methodical passing game. They're getting Ta'amu out of the pocket, a lot of bootlegs, RPOs like you talked about, getting Pearson L involved, a lot of crossing routes over the middle, utilizing those out routes, and then they hit that deep pass. Usually it's been in the second half. I mean, there's been one almost every week where Ta'amu's been placing a right in his receiver on the go route, right in his arms. So I think it's kind of they're setting up success for later in the game, wearing down a defense.
Yeah. I just think they've been too good on offense to score this. Like, I just feel like they, as good as they've been, that they they should be scoring more points. A lot of these field goals could be scoring into touchdowns, just because I've been so impressed of what they do between the 20s. It's impressive.
All right, so let's go ahead and go to our number one team. They've been our number one team for a while now. They've been in our top 3 basically all season long, the Houston Roughnecks. And, I mean, P.J. Walker. All right, thanks for watching the video. Right. Did you guys see him freaking run over somebody last weekend? I mean, this guy is just so much fun to watch. And just the way that he commands the pocket and keeps his composure. You never see him get flustered. You see other quarterbacks, when pressure's around them, you can see the pressure getting to them, and it's in the back of their mind. They're thinking about it. P.J. Walker has impressed me so much with the fact that when there's things going on around him, when the pocket's breaking down around him, he knows, okay, I got to step up or I got to get out of this, but he's constantly looking downfield. I can't tell you how many of these touchdowns are him just keeping the play alive and looking downfield and hitting his receiver for a big play. I mean, he's just playing at an unreal level right now.
Yeah, and he's leading his receivers. He's fitting balls into tight windows. He's threading the needles. I mean, these are professional throws. Him and Te'amu, honestly, as y'all watch these last 2 games, they're throwing professional throws through defenses that the corner is there, and they're still hitting receivers. It's unbelievable. And to see P.J. Walker just to progress through his reads and hit his 3rd and 4th read, not every quarterback in the XFL can do that yet. But you look at P.J. Walker, he's got 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I mean, that TD to interception ratio is just phenomenal. And 6, 7 touchdowns going to our boy Cam
Phillips, baby.
Cam Phillips, yeah.
Your boy, Pat, though. Riley's boy.
Yeah, and we can talk all day long, all show long about how great this offense is. But what's really impressed me was last week. Last week was a definition of a team win. You know, they put up some good points on offense, and this offense is always going to score. But the offense wasn't on their A game last week, and the defense went out and forced 5 turnovers. Very opportunistic. They picked up the offense, and that's what's the scariest thing about this team is you're always going to have to worry about their offense. They're off with the threat of their offense putting up 40 points on you and making points at a premium. But then even on an off day, their defense is still good. Their defense is still great enough to pick up their offense and say, "Hey, you're not quite having your stellar day that we're used to having. That's okay. We got your back. We're going to pick you up. We're going to force Landry Jones and Philip Nelson to throw 4 INTs. We're going to pick up a fumble and score a defensive touchdown." So that's the scariest part. They're a very, very complete team.
They're such an efficient team because Dietrich Nichols and Cody Brown both lead the league in interceptions. But they're that word that we've just been using over and over, week after week for this defense, opportunistic. They come up with big plays at big times of the game. And they leave their offense with short fields, and their offense is converting them to touchdowns. I mean, you're going to win a lot of football games, as we're seeing right now, when you have that formula going, and no one's been able to stop it so far.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, 100% on that, Riley. One thing to keep a note that I took out of this game, too, just kind of highlighting the offense just one more time. Nick Holley and Khalil Lewis were targeted the most, and it wasn't even close, 10 and 13. Each had 8. Holley had 8 receptions. Lewis had 6 receptions. I think what you're starting to see is that defenses are understanding kind of the run and shoot concepts and where Cam Phillips and what route concepts he's running, him and Sammy Coates. And so they're basically set. What Dallas did was, hey, we're going to make Nick Holley and Khalil Lewis beat us, right? And this may be a recipe that we may see the rest of the year. We may see Nick Holley get a bunch of catches and score a bunch of touchdowns because people don't want Cam Phillips to beat them. So just keep an eye on that. I think it's something as we go on, next week, following week, all the way to the end of the season, how involved is Khalil Lewis and Nick Holley? And I think that'll be more related to how teams play them on defense than P.J. Walker just simply not throwing Cam Phillips the ball.
So Houston comes in at number 1 in our power rankings this week. I'm sure it's a shocker to all you XFL fans, but I'm interested to see what your power rankings are. Leave them in the comment section below. I'm interested to see how different they are from ours and then everyone else's that comments in the comments section. Keep up with us at XFL Chalk Talk on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, people, so you get the latest content from the show.
What's up, football fans? This is Coach Gless. Want to know how to listen to all of our segments on the go? You can subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform today. Don't forget to rate us and give us that 5-star review.